Hey, Brave Soul, it's your friend Chrystal Dawn, and this is her Brave Story podcast.
What I do know for sure is that becoming friendly with death makes you live much harder. It really enriches everything that you do in life because you have a reality check of how precious and impermanent that is.
I want to begin by acknowledging that I am on the sacred lands of the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm truly grateful that you are here. Her Brave Story podcast is a conversation that sparks courage, ignites possibility, and celebrates the brave in every woman, because women's stories matter. If we haven't met yet, welcome. I'm Chrystal Dawn, storyteller, saltwater mama, and women's mentor, here to support you in creating a life that you love with more freedom, joy, and ease. Today's guest is someone who has helped transform the way we talk about death, dying, and ceremony, not just in Australia, but around the world. Zenith Virago is a Deathwalker, a celebrant, an educator, a trainer, and the founder of the Natural Death Care Center charity. She is also an acclaimed author and a TEDx speaker. She's been working in the field of holistic death and bereavement for over 30 years and is the subject of the acclaimed documentary Zen and the Art of Dying. She's trained hundreds of celebrants and end-of-life practitioners, supported countless families through grief and ceremony, and continues to advocate for death literacy, community-led dying, and reclaiming death as a sacred part of life, putting body care and ceremony back into our own hands. Zenith is also a proud queer woman and a longtime activist for LGBTQIA+ rights, feminism, and social justice. She is a truth teller, a change maker who leads with wisdom and heart. I am so glad that you are here because this conversation is so powerful and it could and will absolutely change the way you live your life and understand death. Please help me give a warm welcome to Zenith Virago. Hi, Zenith. Welcome to Her Brave Story podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you.
How's your day been so far?
My day's been good. I've had lots going on already and just had a beautiful Zoom with friends in America in all of that madness. My days are usually pretty full, but pretty full of fabulous things.
I can only imagine. And I just want to say thank you again for creating the time for us here, for creating time for me and the listeners who are here. I can only say on my behalf and what I would believe anybody else, it's just such an honor to be here and to have this opportunity to sit and hear part of your brave story today.
Great. Well, let's get going then.
Awesome, Zenith. Well, I have 1,000,001 questions, really.
Right.
I would love for you, in your own words, to describe what a Deathwalker is for those of us who are new to the terminology and somebody who might not have ever heard of death walking, especially those in other countries who haven't yet experienced some of the liberation that you're bringing to this particular art.
Sure. Well, I think it's a very old role. I think there was always someone in every community who held the birth knowledge and someone who held the death knowledge and experience and familiarity. And sometimes that would even be the same person. But here, where we are, I've spent the last 30 years working with people who are dying, with the bodies of people who have died, and with families and friends at the kitchen table, at the bedside, in ceremony, in the supermarket when I bump into them, or at parties when I meet people and we're having a conversation. And really what I'm doing is I am responding to people's needs, and I'm accompanying them and walking with them in their journey, whether they're a dying person or a bereaved person or someone anticipating a death. And that's what I'm doing professionally. But personally, I'm walking towards my own death and the death of all the people I love in the very best way that I can, openly, courageously, honestly, and being as informed as possible. I'm trying to make death an ordinary experience where you set a place for it at the table, that it's omnipresent. You don't have to feed it, you don't have to worry about it, but just know that it's always there and it can happen at any time. And then it can be less, it can still be a shock, but at least you've got some capacity to deal with that
Mhm.
situation should it arise or when it arises, whatever it is.
Hearing you say when it arises, should it arise, that I'm always walking towards my death. In the things that I've seen of you, you actually have a very uplifted sense about you, about death. It's not like I'm walking towards my death as it being this heavy weight, but it's something far different to that experience. Could you tell me about what walking towards death means to you and how you carry that? How do we walk towards death?
Well, we're all doing it, whether we're aware of it or not. I mean, every day that we live, we're closer to our death, one way or the other. I mean, it's not rocket science. But death, being in close proximity to death, whether that's
Mhm.
sudden or expected, it teaches you a lot about living. And the very simplest one is that you never know when your use by date is coming, when you are going to die. Some people do because they have an illness or they have a condition or they choose to end their own lives. Then they know when that's coming to an end. But most of us are hoping that's not going to come for us today and that we get to live another
Mhm.
day. But we don't think about that because we're just busy living. But if you do stop and think about it, it's like when you become a parent, which I know you're a parent
Mhm.
of a small, young, beautiful child. Um, suddenly you get a whole different perspective on life because suddenly you have something that's in a way more precious than your own life. Because most parents would
Mhm.
say, I would lay down my own life for my child. And you often see that in
Mhm.
acts of heroic behavior where people, you know, go into situations to rescue children, especially in the
Mhm.
ocean. And the adult will die, but the child will be saved sometimes. And
Mhm.
so, we're all living as human beings with the complexity and the incredible mystery of that. But what I do know for sure
Mhm.
is that becoming friendly with death makes you live much harder. It really enriches
Mhm.
everything that you do in life. Because you have a reality check of how precious and impermanent that is.
Becoming friendly with death. For people who want to get more friendly with death, what could you suggest in your experience could be for someone to get more friendly with death?
Well, I would, which is what I'm doing as part of my training, that now I spend a lot of time in educating people rather than doing that work
Mhm.
itself, because as an elder now I'm in my late 60s, and so my time is better spent educating people rather than working with people, because those people will then take that body of knowledge and experience and, dare I say, wisdom now, and and embody that and then move in the world in their work, just like I did when I was in my 30s and life offered me death and I began to work in that way with people. But I think one of the simplest things to do is for a few moments a day, at the very least,
Mhm.
like when you're sitting quietly somewhere, is just think, and it could be when you go to bed at night, where you just, you've had a full on day, whatever your life has offered you, you're in the bed, you want to
Mhm.
become one with the mattress, you're, reflecting back on the day, and you would think, how would it be if I die tonight? Or
Mm.
if what if this is my last night's sleep and tomorrow like and just sort of start to grow a capacity of inviting that awareness in. You're not inviting death in. It's like saying, oh, I might win the lotto, or the raffle. You might want to win that raffle, and you may or may not. It's not up to you. It's out of your hands. And that's generally, I would say, the same thing about death, that sometimes it's within our hands and we make that happen, but often it's a range of other things. So to just
Yeah.
contemplate for a small amount of time each day, are you doing with your life what you want to be doing? Are you becoming the person that you want to be? Have you got things you need to go and repair? Have you got, did you do things that you're not happy about? Can you go and undo them or repair them in some way? But then the next step after that, when you come to some place where you think, oh yeah, I'm pretty good with that. I might die, I might not, but I'm good if I go. But then the next question is, are you good about your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews? And that's often a very different response from people. And so what I would encourage people to do, which as I say, I do all the time, is to take a moment to think, how would I be if my child dies or any of the children in my life? Because we have a concept that children dying is not the natural order. But the concept of a natural order is, in fact, a misnomer, because for many centuries, for as long as human beings have existed, a lot of women died in childbirth. A lot of babies died in utero or at birth or shortly afterwards. And before medical intervention and medical progress, then, there were a lot more infant mortality. So most people had lots of children because they knew that some of those would die before they were 5 or before they were 10, until they became, grown up adults and had a different capacity to survive. So, and of course, you're not inviting that situation in, but what you are doing is growing a capacity that, should that happen to you or to someone else in your community or family or friends or really close friendship group, you are able to offer that person some support in allowing them to lean into you, because you've already thought about it and you haven't collapsed. You've grown some capacity to be in that situation. And imagining it and being in it are two very different things. But at least you've got some idea of how that might be, because everybody else in your friendship group or family will be a mess, will be merging with that person's distress. And they'll also be looking at their own situation and think, oh, my God, I don't know what I'd do if that happened to my child, which are all very natural human experiences and responses. But that's why people look to me in times of crisis like that, because I stay solid and they can lean into that. And for whether that's a physical lean, an emotional lean, a needs be lean of what do I do, where do I go, what's going to happen in the system, what are my options, what do I need to think about, how am I going to make this the very best it can be when it's absolutely terrible. And so that's a great practice. I think it's a very ordinary practice. And people who have a disease or have a condition are often in that practice all the time, because they don't know when they're going to die. Or if they've got a child with a life-limiting illness or condition, or or that child is a risk taker, for example, then we have to come to terms with the fact that we could be looking at their death and the consequences of that at any moment. And so, for example, extreme sports people are really great teachers about death, because before they embark on that career or that course of action, they normally have a conversation really openly and honestly with their partner, and they come to a place where they accept that death may be a risk in that activity. And so when someone does die who's an extreme sports person, you'll see the partner on the TV saying, or in print saying, they died doing
Mhm.
something that they love. And I love them and I will miss them,
Mhm.
but I couldn't stop them doing it because it was what gave them so much joy in life. And so they're
Oh.
great examples of that love is stronger than fear, because
Mm.
they will overcome their fear of losing the person that they love the most because they love them and they want them to do whatever they're doing, even though there's a high risk involved. And
Mm.
living has a high risk involved because it always has death omnipresent.
Oh, wow, so rich and so deep. I'm already actually getting teary, of course, thinking of these own things in my own mind. Am I prepared for my son to
Yeah,
die before me?
yeah,
Even that thought, even uttering those words right now, that would be the first time that I would have said those words out loud.
yeah,
I can feel my heart tighten. I feel my eyes, watering. I feel
yeah.
myself
Great.
going into a distressed state, as well, as
But that
well. And um,
but that is your
mm,
love transformed, and love is one of the most
mm,
it's the strongest force on the planet, and it is an
yeah.
incredible fuel to allow us to live a full life. And, I'm looking at you on my screen crying and dabbing your tears. And, I just love you in that suffering because you are a functioning human
Oh.
being who can feel can feel those emotions, because sometimes people can't access, their love, or they don't have anybody to love, or they don't feel that people love them. And so, that it's a richness in our lives and death's a great teacher like that.
This is such a powerful conversation, brave souls. And if you are with us, you know how deeply this speaks to love, loss, and the human experience. To help amplify the voices of women rising, please subscribe. Take a moment to share this episode with someone you love or who needs to hear it, and leave us a review. This is how Her Brave Story podcast stays alive, and we help other people like you to find us. And if you'd like to go deeper in community, we'd love to welcome you into Her Brave Story Facebook group, a space for women walking through change, reclaiming their voice, and rewriting their next chapter together. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Zenith Virago, Deathwalker. We've known each other for over a decade now. We first got to know each other at the Vagina Monologues, one of
Yeah.
Eve Ensler's Vagina Monologues. And that's when I first had the opportunity to meet you. And then you've walked gracefully through my life in other ways. You've been somebody who's supported families who I know who have lost children.
Yeah.
And I'll just take a beat for that. I've also been at your events for V-Day, Byron Bay, getting
Hmm.
out into the water together against violence against women and raising awareness. You do so much deep raising of awareness, and you're so committed to our collective movement for nonviolence towards women and so much more.
Mm.
And through all of that, me starting something new, leaning into this and listening to you, I was in particular listening. I listened to your TED Talk, which I love. And I'm going to listen to that regularly because you really speak to what it is to die, what is death. This would be a lovely time if you'd like to share a bit about your backstory and how you came to be a death walker, or what has influenced you the most to take this role in your life, and this deep commitment towards cherishing life and protecting as well. I feel that you're really a protector of the goodness, and you stand for peace and equality.
Hmm. I think I think it starts when you're young, and I think I've been very fortunate because I have a personality that is pretty simple, I would say. But I know from when I was a child that I grew up in a house where I didn't have violence, I didn't have abuse. I also learnt that if I spoke up, I would be listened to, which seems to be not such a common thing for people. Most people were taught, my generation, that, they not to have an opinion, not to speak up, girls in particular. But that's not what I experienced. So I'm very grateful for my parents in their ordinariness, that they allowed me to be who I was. And with that, I learned not only to speak up for myself, but also to speak up for others, because it became very clear to me quite quickly that other people, everyone has a voice, but whether they can use it or not seems to depend on a few things, um, internal things and external things. Anyway, it came to me to be the outspoken, stroppy, opinionated voice of our class at school. But what I learned is the more you practice something, the better at it you get. So I know you're a surfer, so obviously the more you practice that, the better at it you get, unless you're completely useless. And then you think, actually, it's not working for me. It doesn't matter how much I practice, I'm not going to be good at that. But what I learned was the more I practiced speaking up, the better at it I got. And what happened for the other people was the more they practiced being quiet and not speaking up, the better at that they got. And so that I learned that probably by the time I was 11. I also learned that the world worked on gender, the patriarchy worked on gender. And I was about 8 or 9, and I had an incident where I just thought, wow, if that's how stupid the world is, that it picks people on gender, not on who's the best person for that job, I am never going to lose because I'm a girl. I don't need to win, but I am never going to lose. And that core kernel of realization has fueled my whole life. And I would say that at this point, now I'm 68, so I was 8, that's 60 years I've lived with that awareness. I have never lost because I was a girl and because I was a woman and because I'm a dyke. And it's been really fabulous. And just recently, and during the middle of my life, I had an opinion about everything. I was, standing up for others, standing up for myself, and I learned, some things I backed down on, some things I got stronger on, but I was learning those lessons in a reality situation. And what has happened recently, now I'm in my 60s, even though people never said it to me during the rest of my life, people are now, in the last week, I've had at least 5 people say to me, that's what I love about you, Zenith. You're fearless. I love your wisdom. I love that you don't back down, that you stand your ground, but that you argue, with a heart, or you have an opinion that's heart-based. And so now I'm starting to think, wow, it would have been great if you'd said that before, uh, but anyway, but fortunately I could, I found my own way in that. And I had, lots of love and support from some great friends. And we were sort of learning those things together. But the other thing I was very fortunate is that I've lived in a subculture because I am a white woman. And so I don't know what it's like to be part of other subcultures, but I know that I've lived, nearly all my adult life as a queer woman. And I'm very grateful for that because it allows me a lens that doesn't keep me in the majority. It puts me into a minority. And so I have to see things, I get to see what it's like as a white person, as a relatively normal looking person, but I also get to see the world from a queer perspective. And So that small perspective has given me an insight into what it's like for other people who are subcultural or diverse or not part of that dominant entitled paradigm. And I'm very grateful for that because it's made me a better person. It's made me much more understanding, much more considerate, much more expansive. And I think, what we were saying before we had that technical hitch was about, making a difference for people.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would have said on the end of that rave was that I have a bottom line that I just have to make a difference for one person a day.
Mm.
And that's a good day because I'm I am sort of changing the world, but that wasn't my intention around the death work and also around some of the political women's actions, because you never know what you're seeding. So, for example, someone who comes to the Vagina Conversations, which is the event we hold now, someone who comes to the 1 Billion Rising V-Day events may take that as their core kernel and grow that, and they may change the world. So we don't know what anybody else is going to do with it, but what we know is if we don't share anything, if we don't grow anything, then it just sits with us. And that may be enough for some people. But if life is offering you the opportunity to step up and be bigger than who you think you can be, or contribute to the world in a more generous way, then the only answer is yes. And we're safe in our doing of that, where some people are in situations in war zones, in countries with heavy political governments, and they are saying yes to even when their life is at risk.
Mm.
And so it's very easy to sit here in Australia and do what my contribution to that, because my life is not at risk for that. And my hat is off and my respect is complete to anyone who is somewhere in the world being an activist
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way, where their life is at risk and their people are at risk. And they're having to make decisions and look at death
Mm.
uh, as a consequence, an early death or imminent death, because of the consequence of their actions. And that is something that I am not having to do. But life sometimes calls you to something, and it brings us to that, the mystery is a human life all there is, or is there something after? Are we
Mm.
spiritual beings having a human experience? Is the quality of our human life what we're answerable for? So the Buddhists have a karmic approach to life. That is, what karma you accumulate during this life will determine your rebirth. And I think all of those all of those concepts are worth considering as an influence on how you behave every day, how you behave to strangers, how you behave to friends, how you behave to intimate relationships. And you have to be able to live with yourself in a contented sort of a way at the end of every day, even in an external challenging situation.
Mm. Wow. It's just like all of its landings, and it's then like
I can
do
see, I
do do
can
do do
see.
do 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 do. It's like a Tetris kind of thing, and then you have such an artful way of bringing really big, complex ideas, really, and
I
meaning.
don't think they're big and complex.
For
I
you, they're
don't. I
not,
think
but
they're
I
very
think for me,
simple.
maybe for me, it is, and it feels that way. It feels like you're bringing together a lot of deep life lessons, really, a lot of things
Hmm.
that many of us are very curious about, but don't get the opportunity much to talk about or hear about.
Well, but that's also my role now as an elder, as an old person and someone who's lived a quality life, been fortunate enough, just lucky enough to have had a life where I could live it on my own terms and contribute of something of value to the world. Then it's my role now to share that learning, to share that legacy with to offer it to
Mhm.
others, whether they want it or not, whether they're interested in it or not. But I certainly have to offer it. It's like when you offer a hand to someone to help them, they'll either say thank you,
Mm.
or they'll say, I can do it on my own, or oh, it's not necessary, or oh, let's walk together.
Yes.
You know, thanks. And so, uh, that's what life is so rich if you're fortunate enough to be free to live it. As I say,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people living under extraordinary circumstances where that's not the case for them. But
It's so true, and I'm hearing it's also a call to action really as well for those of us who are in more, if we can use this word here, privileged situations, to say, is there something more I could contribute to, or how could I lean into this uncomfortable
mm,
area that might be able to serve others, or how could I be a voice for people who might not be able to have
yeah,
their own voice right now?
yeah,
Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners about how you can lean into that? Because this is her brave story, I love this idea that we're collecting lessons and courage from our sisters.
yeah.
And I wonder if there's, because you've given us so much already, but if there's something you feel that you really haven't said yet that you'd like to say around how someone could live their best life or could offer who they are, or something from your own life that you really felt was integral to your own success in continuing to be who you are in the world, even though, I mean, you say, it's been okay for you to be a dyke, but for many people it's not okay, and they struggle and they have hard times, even though it's okay. There's still a battle going on inside for many of us for different reasons. Maybe it's not around being a dyke or not, but it's around other things. For me, where I wanted to start this podcast for years and
Mm.
felt unqualified and all these things, these things that stop us. But there's the mental chatter, there's the monkey that comes in, and
Or there isn't.
or there isn't, or there's nothing. But for me, and for people who are like me, who might have the monkey in there, or who might have the naysaying or the self-doubt, or maybe an experience that they feel has limited them in some capacity,
Yeah,
is there something you could impart for us?
I'll try. Um, I think what's really helpful to me is about growing courage. So courage is something I didn't have to grow. I had that as part of who I am, my personality, because I grew that a lot as a very small child and as all the way through. But what I had to grow was vulnerability,
Mm.
because in that way that we can put up protection, armor to protect ourselves, which we can be much more courageous if we're armor plated. We
Mm.
can walk into different situations. Whereas some people are very vulnerable, and that's challenging for them. But I think one of the lessons I've learned is that vulnerability and courage are the same, absolutely the same thing. So you could say, oh, they're two sides of a coin, but they are the coin. They are who we are. We have vulnerability and we have courage, but we need to value them the same. So in your vulnerability, you are being courageous by going deeper. But then the trick, I think, or the way to go is not to carry that burden. So in your example, where you wanted to start the podcast, is just start the podcast. And if it if it has any juice, if it has any value, if the universe, the mystery, whatever, wants it to succeed, if it's a value to the world, it will. But lots of people are doing shit things, and they are contributing those shit things to the world, because it's a flow, it's a wave, and it doesn't matter whether you're good at it or not. The thing is to just undertake it and see what happens, because you can't be attached to the outcome. You can only be attached to the trying or the offering of that, and it will either get picked up or it won't. And if it doesn't, you can slog away at that for a while and then think, actually, this isn't working. What do I need to learn from this? And off you go. But sometimes it will just, like for me, what I did when I started the death work, and several times during this 30 years of being in that work and that practice for death, is I've said, okay, if you want me to continue with that work or to deepen that work or to be able to do that work, you need to make a wave for me. So I'm not a surfer, I'm a swimmer. And I'm in the deep ocean with no board, having a lovely time swimming in the ocean as we lucky enough to live near it. But I know that I don't want to be pushing shit uphill. I do not want to be having to carry a heavy load or all of that, because it's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, I bring my whole self to that, but please make a wave for me. And I have been riding or in that wave for the last 30 years. And life, as I say, has been very kind to me. I've been able to be of service and assistance to lots of different people, some of whom you know. But I've also had great self-care. So I'm as kind to myself as I am to others. And a lot of people consider me to be a kind person in my work. But it's no good not looking after yourself. So even though I've just come from playing pickleball, and I didn't actually realize you would be making a video of this because it was for a radio program. So I'm still in
Sorry,
my,
I'm so
that's all
sorry.
right. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that. And that's what I mean. It's not like I say to you, oh, hang on, I'll just have to go and put some proper clothes on, or I'll just have to brush my hair, anything like that. I'm just like, oh, well, who gives a fuck? It's not what I'm appearing like. It's the quality of what I have to offer here. And that's part of it, that you just offer what you have to offer. You're not concerned about things that aren't important.
Yeah.
And I can see, my glasses are wonky. Do I care? I'm not trying to straighten them up. I'm just, none of that is important. I'm just enjoying this moment with you, offering it up, responding to your invitation, and not hampering myself by worrying about things that are not important. And there's a whole lot in there. I hope that
Oh,
makes
no,
sense.
it's so beautiful. And even this end note.
Anyway,
I love it though. And I love this end note right here that you say, like, what I'm hearing is that you're not giving energy to things that don't need it either, because you figured out that that's a waste of energy, and you value your time and your energy, and you value what you have to give. So you're focusing all of that on what you have to give versus what isn't working or what you need to do to make it better or worse, or superfluous things are far less important to you now. And
they've never been important, I might
yeah,
add.
they've never
So,
been more amazing. Well, you're one of the lucky ones.
yeah, but the sooner you sort of learn those lessons, then the quality of the life that you live, because those lessons keep giving. They don't just give it to you once. They give over and over again, and they grow because you're planting seeds, and those seeds are coming into fruit, and they're offering you something really juicy to live with
Oh, I
and
love
to share with others.
I love that, because I want to speak to the listeners now too, is that if you are trying to start something new or want to start something new, I hope that you can see this as an experiment for me too, that I'm putting myself out there. This is something totally new, and we have this great opportunity with Zenith, who's run many experiments in her life, saying that, hey, look, don't worry about what it looks like right now or what's happening. Just get out there and start giving and start
Yeah.
doing your work in the world and see where that takes you.
And I see people who are much more capable than me, much more intelligent, much more articulate, but they're busy hampering themselves thinking, "Oh, I can't start that until I'm perfect."
Mm.
You're never
Ooh.
you're never gonna be perfect. And, um, it's a it's a waste of time.
Mm.
But if you just think, "I just have to make a difference for one person a day,"
Mm.
it's very easy. So it's like in your podcast, you only have to have one person listen to it and they do something with that. It's a good day,
Ah.
you know. And I've had that bottom line my whole life and
Mm.
in my work, in everything that I'm doing. If one person gets something from it, it's worth it. It's very easy to satisfy that benchmark.
Yeah, and how profound though as well. If you can
Right.
change one life, like that's
That's
profound.
right, because you never know what that person is going to do with it.
Very, very true. Very true. One question I have for you is if you have a song or anthem that helps you to get in state, and you're probably not a person who really needs that, but for those of us who like to get in state with music and sometimes want to just a little bit of a hit of
I
juicy
love
vibes.
music. Yeah, because I know music is the master manipulator. So to do with death, people will forget what was said at the funeral, but they
Wow.
will always remember the music that people played. They'll say, "Oh, I remember that because they played so and so." Or whenever I hear that song, it reminds me of that person and that ceremony. But I'm so in the now that
Mhm.
I'm hopeless with music, even though I love it. I, s- I forget. So right now I am a blank or something, and I'm a little bit stuck in the 80s, and I'm a little bit stuck in queer anthems. I've I'm stuck. My musical taste is very, very eclectic. It's multifaceted, but I don't have a piece that motivates me. I'm motivated by everything that is part of my life. So
What
I'm
what about a song that just any song, Zenith,
anything,
any song. Give us a
anything.
song from the 80s that you just like dancing to. What's one song you can dance to? That if I put on now, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is my jam."
Well, in the completely dagginess of this situation, I would have to say, I know that if I'm somewhere and they play ABBA, I have to get up and dance. But, I also am, it's not a great example, but I'm just going to get myself out of trouble by saying, Dancing Queen or something like
Oh,
that.
yes. Oh, but I
Because
love
it's a
Dancing
total
Queen.
anthem. Yeah,
Yes!
anything.
Yes! Thank you. That's an air hug to you. Thank you for being so brave and picking one.
Yeah, but really, I can't be bothered. But
No.
anyway, I'm just trying to satisfy you because I can see it's meaningful to you.
It is
So,
meaningful to me because I
right.
love music too. And it was so interesting. I'm actually glad I asked that question because I was like, oh, Chrystal, don't ask that question. Like, don't ask it to Zenith. But I'm really glad I did because I found something out right there when you said that at the funeral, people will forget about things if they hear a piece of music that takes them
Mm.
to a different place.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
and music can take you into the depth of your feeling and it can lift you out of the situation to be able to walk out at the end of that ceremony and live your own life without that person physically in it because they then become a memory and a part of you after that. But
Mhm.
But it's simple. Like if you've got a slideshow, for example, all the pictures are happy generally, but if they set it to sad music, it will pull you down. The music will win every time. And
Wow.
so, you know, it's, and that's why generally you finish on up, not on meaningful and sad, because you want people
Gosh.
to be able to get out of the chair and leave and walk into their own life.
Mhm. Okay, on that note, because I know you have to go,
I do
where
have to
can
go.
where can people find you? Where can people find you?
Anyway, you can Google me.
online?
I'm not saying that.
Okay, I'm going to have your information on the show notes. Is there
Yeah.
anything you want to leave our listeners with before you go off back into your extraordinary life?
I would probably say that, for every moment that you're alive, it's never too late to make a remedy. And if you're lucky, you'll live long enough for anything to come round. But you are much better to take that and a try to remedy something that isn't sitting right. Don't pretend that it's not happening, because the sooner you address something, the more you have to learn from it.
Ooh, wow. Thank you so much, Zenith.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate you.
Okay, waving.
I want to have a pickleball game with you. I haven't played yet, so I'm thinking about
Oh,
that.
it's so much fun, pickleball. Anyway,
We have a tennis court nearby. Can we still play it there?
you can. I've played tennis my whole life since I was 11, and I love it as a game. But pickleball is a whole different thing. You can play both. I still play both. But yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much again. Sending our aloha out to you and
You're
your
welcome.
ohana.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today, brave soul. I trust that these lessons and courage help you to grow your greatness and remind you you're not alone. Please take a moment to subscribe and share this episode, as it helps other amazing people like you to find us and amplify the voices of women rising. If you spend time in the water or simply care about choosing conscious, beautifully made gear, check out my friends Abyss. They create sustainable swimwear, wetsuits, and activewear made by women for women with the planet in mind. I wear their suits myself, and I am proud to partner with a brand that truly walks its talk. You'll find the link along with our special Her Brave Story podcast discount in the show notes. You'll also find links to Zenith, including her Deathwalker training, films, TEDx talks, books, and her website with powerful resources on living and dying well. And if you've been craving a deeper connection, head over to Her Brave Circle. It's our community space for women giving themselves permission to thrive, reclaiming their power, and writing new stories together. We'd love to have you there. I'll be right here waiting for you next time you hit play with a smile and your weekly dose of Her Brave Story, because women's stories matter. Until then, remember that you're worth it, and thrive on, brave soul.